Blocks are used in the gCADPlus environment to simplify drafting. For example, if this filled polyline here represented a paving bricks, I might want to use a rectangular pattern of paving bricks, and rather than copy the polyline over and over, it makes sense to turn it into one single entity. This will help reduce the file size. So let's select our polyline, right click, create a block. I'm going to call it 300mm paver. I could add a description, but importantly you need to pick some sort of base point. You'll see the significance of that in a moment. So pick a point. I'm going to choose the bottom left of the paver and I'll OK it. And we're done. Now when I select it, it says I'm a 300mm paver. What I've then done is gone to my drafting settings, turn polar tracking on and set my polar distance step at 350 units or 350mm, remembering this is a 300mm paver. So now I can copy it from its base point, which we carefully selected, and come across here. Can you see how the paver just clicks into position? So I'm going to finish there and escape. Now I could copy that lot as well, and from its base point I could go up, and because I've got polar tracking on, I get a nice gap between the individual pavers, a 50mm gap. Now just imagine that I wanted to fill that gap with some mondo grass. So I've got a symbol here that might represent mondo grass. I'm in the metric environment here, but exactly the same would work in the imperial. It's about 60 units across, so that symbol's a little small. I think what I'm going to do is to double it, so I'm going to scale it, make it twice as large. So we're now going to, our mondo grass is now going to cover 120mm. It could even be a little larger, I guess. That's a 50mm gap between the two, but I do want the mondos to spill out over the paving bricks. So now we've got a symbol, or what could be a symbol. I'm going to turn it into a block. And so instead of having 20 or 30 individual polylines that constitute the symbol, I'm going to turn that into a single symbol or a block. So I select everything, create the block, we'll give it a new name, mondo, and as a pick point I'm going to pick in the center of the symbol and say convert it to a block, and we'll say OK. Now when we pick it, its symbol is mondo, so I can copy it from one point to another. But remember, I've got my drafting settings set at a polar tracking is on, but enabling the distance step. So I'm going to take the distance step off because I don't want this, when I pick copy now, I don't want the symbol to inhibit me in any way. So I can just fill the space with my mondo grass. Now this drawing will be really quite small in file size. You can measure the file size of the drawing, or estimate it, or get a value from it by typing FS, short for file size. It's 32 kilobytes in size, which is absolutely minuscule. So I'll now move that into position. So making blocks makes drafting easier. Once I've got all of these done across here, I can copy those from there over to there, and they fit. I can stretch things out. Once you get a couple of blocks made, I'll say no there, a couple of blocks made, the drawing can be produced really quickly and is tiny in size, because we're not copying hundreds of polylines, we're copying one entry, one database entry. So using blocks has a double benefit. It makes things easy to operate in the drafting environment, but keeps your file size down. I'll just take a moment now and tidy it up and make a more interesting shape for you. Well, here's the effect I'm after. It's a design for a pocket handkerchief insert alongside a driveway. so it's only 1.35 meters square, and I'll take out a small section once I've oriented things correctly for this Manchurian pear. So I hope that gives you some idea that blocks are really useful. Speed up drafting and keep the file size small. This file is only 41 kilobytes in size, which is absolutely tiny. Your drawings, when built this way, will be small, load fast and print quickly.